Hello, everybody. As of the time of this recording, I just woke up after having passed out, after having finally submitted my entry, among many thousands of others, to the Game Maker's Toolkit 2024 Game Jam, called Cuby the Gelatinous Q, because I'm terrible at coming up with names for things. So, I thought that while I was doing the game jam, especially since we had a particularly long jam this year, with it being 96 hours long instead of 48, I thought that I would every once in a while do a sort of off the cuff recording, a sort of mini devlog series. And this video is basically just me assembling all of those clips in chronological order to kind of show you the journey that I went through during this game jam. And to give some people who might not know, like, some idea as to what this kind of insane rapid-fire game development can be like. Now, obviously, like I said, I make no claims to be the most skilled developer or programmer in the world. There are countless mistakes inbound, and also a lot of the recordings are made very off the cuff. I couldn't exactly do multiple takes, especially since I was, rushed to actually make the game in those 4 days. So I apologize ahead of time for any potential weird audio aberrations, as there's not really much that I can do to fix them. But regardless, I hope that you all enjoy my game dev journey over these last few days. Okay, it's officially about to start in just a couple of minutes. God, I gotta admit that I am still super nervous. It has been way too long since I've done anything like this. I just hope that the theme isn't too like weird or abstract or something like that. I mean, to be fair, they're usually pretty general. Like, looking through the past themes for the previous game jams, they do things like roll of the dice or out of control and things like that, which clearly have a lot of like open to interpretation sort of style to it. So I'm trying to calm my nerves a little bit by like just kind of like brainstorming what I would have done with like older game jam themes and things like that. But man, not to mention there's like I think there's like 30,000 people registered. Now, to be fair, I think that's individuals, so a lot of those people are going to be like on teams. And so I don't know how many games are going to be, but like, for example, last year there was 22,000 people registered and nearly 7,000 games that were uploaded. So, not to mention that there's also, because this one is 4 days long instead of 2 days long, like, who knows what people are going to come up with. Cool, but it looks like it's about to start. Let's find out what the theme is for today. Ooh, come on. Begin. It doesn't actually give you a countdown or something. It just says 60 seconds, but it's been like that for, well, nearly a minute. Eight, seven, six, five, four, three, two, one. Okay, what is it?
GMTK Game Jam 2024 begins right now. Your goal over the next 4 days is to make a game that fits the following theme: built to scale. That's
Huh.
right. I want to see games that make size, scale, and dimensions a key part of the gameplay. I want to see games about teeny tiny microscopic things.
Oh, I remember that
I
game.
want to see games about absolutely enormous, cosmically massive things. I want to see games where big things become small and small things become big. As always, you can interpret this theme however you like. Use it as a jumping off point. So get creative, think outside the box, and surprise us. In this jam, you can work with who you want, use whatever tools you like,
Okay.
use of whatever assets
Interesting.
you can get your hands on. But please do check out the GMTK Game Jam page on itch.io for the complete rules. You can also head to our Discord channel to chat with other jammers, show off your work, and get feedback. Remember that this year you're getting twice as much time as before, so please use those.
Yes, like I said, it's normally 2 days, but now we get 4 days. Although there is
Have fun, and I'll see you when the results are in.
Yep. So, because last year or all the previous years, it was 2 days, but now there's actually two categories where you can choose to submit it within 48 hours if you want, or you can use the full 96. But okay, whoa, we need to do a brainstorming session. Built to scale. Built to scale. I like how they also use the the little Unity widget there. Huh. I need to pull up some notes. Okay. Built to scale. What are some ideas that we can use to play around with that? I mean, the most obvious one is like changing size. Oh my god, this is not going to work. There we go. Yep. Much better. So yeah, changing size. Like that could be used for like solving puzzles or doing something to that effect. So like you have some kind of gates where you can only get through it at a certain size. I mean, that seems like it would be, you know, pretty straightforward. There's got to be something more to it that you can do than that. I mean, weight is another factor that's related to size. So, like, you could have literal scales that move when you're depending on like how heavy you are, and that could like affect the environment, like in terms of physics. And so you have to try and figure out a way to change your weight and become the right weight to, you know, push and pull things. Actually, yeah, because like maybe if you weigh more than something, you push it, but if you weigh less than it pushes you. Okay, okay, there's something. And I mean, this all actually can tie into the same sort of idea. Not to mention, you can also, if we're playing with that, the weight itself can be a resource where you have to actually find something to like absorb. Maybe you're like a gelatinous cube. I'm not even gonna care about grammar or spelling right now. And like you can absorb mass to increase size and weight. And then you can eject mass to not only get smaller, but then that mass can be left behind. So, like, that mass then sort of becomes, like how in Zelda you have to, like, leave an object on a button in order to keep it pressed. So, like, this could be a way to, like, oh, okay, so you leave behind X amount of mass to, like, press a button, or to like tilt a scale a certain, like, oh yeah, like, so, like, for example, like a really basic puzzle would be you have a scale that can be tilted one way or the other, and you have to get to a platform that's higher up, so you have to leave behind most of your mass on one side of the scale so that it tilts up the other side, and then because the rest of you is lighter, that means that you can then jump onto that other scale and be lifted up by the mass you left behind, and then go through the exit. And then, like I said, that can still apply to like different sizes, can accomplish different things. Maybe you can't even jump, and like you have to use your side, like you can only cross a ledge that is smaller than you, so like you have to use that in order to get up. Okay, I think I'm onto something here. I'm liking this idea so far because, like, this means that I can. Yeah, I can. Not to mention, a cube is also within my artistic abilities. I can probably just use a shader or something in order to like render like a happy little cube. Hell, I'm imagining like a Minecraft slime, and then yeah, like I said, I can use it so like you have to be bigger than a ledge in order to actually cross it. So if you're smaller than it, then the ledge would just be impassable and you would not be able to get over it until you collect more mass. But then, like I said, you use like scales or, some kind of seesaw kind of thing, and you're leaving behind mass like over here. And like you could reabsorb the mass you leave behind, but then, various puzzles would require you to leave it behind in order to progress. And then you got like small holes that you can only get through if you're small enough. Okay, yeah, I think we're getting something here. I'm gonna get into Unity and start prototyping. Okay, we are officially a couple hours into the game jam as of this point. I basically downloaded the basic third person platformer sort of prototype in Unity, and then I went ahead and essentially gutted most of the basic functions. Like I got rid of the sprint, I deleted the player model to replace it with just this basic little cube here. I'll probably touch it up more later, but this way I have at least something that looks a little bit nicer than the default Unity cube. And yeah, I've got a little basic moving around. There's a tiny jump, although I'm planning on making that jump mostly useless. In fact, the only reason that it looks significant here is that I'm so small. But I have basically made it so that you can absorb this mass, and then now, as you absorb mass, you get bigger and bigger. And as you can see, the jump height doesn't actually increase with your size, which is why, like, I'm planning on making it so that you have to use ejected mass to, like, kind of build a staircase up to a ledge and things like that. But yeah, I think it's coming along well. I just need to add in the actual function to discard mass, and then that's kind of all the basic player mechanics, at least, come to think of it. Like, all I really needed was the ability to move the camera, and then, yeah, the ability to shed mass, and then that's pretty much all the input. The gaining mass will just happen passively. And then, yeah, then the rest of it I think is just going to be mostly designing the puzzle elements. So I gotta make, obviously, buttons and switches and seesaws and levers and literal scales and things like that. So that'll probably take up most of my day tomorrow, I think. But I think I'm on a pretty good pace. Like I'm gonna at least get the player done within the next couple of hours, and then after that, I guess we'll see. Oh yeah, I might try to see if I can make it so that the size of the ledge you can go up changes with your size too. So like maybe these stairs will become impassable if you're too small or things like that. So I'll experiment with some things. So I'll get back to you when I've made some more progress. Okay, let me, I think I got the mass shedding mechanic working, so I'm just gonna test it for the first time. Okay, so I've got it set so that when you jump, it should create a mass under you. Okay, that was not correct. Oh no, and it just keeps growing. Oh no. Can I reabsorb it before? Oh no. Oh, this is not good. Why am I so small? Okay, I'm gonna go fix this. Well, okay, there's been some progress. It's now doing a different thing now. I must go. My people need me. I need to figure out why it's making so many keys instead of just one. Okay, I think I have mostly addressed the various issues. So now, when you jump, it spawns a cube under you properly. And you can actually stack it. So there's still some more behavior they need to add, because I want to make it so that, obviously after you jump off the cubes, you can then reabsorb them, which I currently do not have the ability to do. And I also want to make it so that when you hold down the spacebar, that the cube that you're standing on will slowly grow, while you in turn shrink. And then that way you can kind of control how much mass you leave in one go. So there's still a few things to go, but at least we're getting closer. Okay, we are officially nearing the end of day one, and I've pretty much gotten my player controller where I want it to be, so I can now in fact hold down the button, and the cube that you're spawning will get bigger, and your mass will decrease accordingly, and you can stack yourself on top of them. But as soon as you leave the stack, you can actually reabsorb them. And you, of course, can absorb other things in the environment. And I mean, it's not a lot, I will admit. It's not the most complicated player in the world. Um, but I think that's pretty much all I need for my most fundamental mechanics. And admittedly, while it doesn't feel like I've done like a ton on the first day, it's worth remembering that the first day is less than half the length of a normal day because it started at 1 p.m. And I did break for lunch after my brainstorming session. And something I didn't mention earlier is that I had my weekly D&D game today, so of course I lost a couple more hours to that. So really, I've only really spent a few hours working on this so far. And I was taking care of some bugs and whatnot. But I mean, I think this is in a pretty good state because like already I can start to kind of demonstrate some of the ideas I was having. Where like, for example, I can't really get up this ledge in any way because my jump is way too small. But if I stack enough of these cubes, suddenly now I can clear it and get over here. And then if you have a gap like this, like if you're big enough, you can cross it. But if, for example, say I got up here and I was at my smallest size, and also, yeah, I made it so that there is a minimum size, so I can't spawn any more of my cubes if I get too small. So, like, if I get too small, well, then now I fall into this gap. So, like, there are definitely ways that I can sort of limit progression and give the player obstacles that require different sizes and whatnot. And this is literally just messing around in the sandbox environment. So, like I said, tomorrow, after I wake up, I think that my goal will be to start designing a bunch of puzzle elements. Because, for example, I can make buttons that require like a certain amount of weight on them, and so you have to like make a really big cube or a bunch of smaller ones in order to press them. And then you have to like gather up enough mass in order to do it, and not to mention seesaws, scales, like a lot of various physics objects, essentially. So I don't think it'll be too hard, but of course I got to work out all the bugs and whatnot. Like there was already a good number of bugs I had to solve just getting these little things to work. So I imagine that I'll run into plenty of trials and tribulations. But honestly, I think I'm on a pretty good pace. Like I said, I've got my player pretty much done. Obviously, I'm planning on prettying it up later, but I'm not even going to think about polish until day 3. Um, but even then, I feel like even if this was a 2-day game jam, I'd be on a pretty good pace, because if I spend most of tomorrow making puzzle elements, then all I really have to do in the morning of the 3rd day is start, polishing and creating basic levels and puzzles, and then I'd be able to turn it in. And yet, with this one, I still have 2 full days after that to keep working on it. So I think this is going to come along fine. Okay, it is officially day 2 of the game jam. According to the countdown timer, we have just over exactly 3 days left. Well, like I said, I think we're on pretty good pace, all things considered. We've got our little guy able to move around and make little cubes and stuff. So I thought that the good thing to do to start off the day would be to sort of make a to-do list of what we want to accomplish today. So I believe I said last time that I wanted to work on some puzzle elements, which makes sense. So let's just figure out a few basic ideas to start off with. Obviously, buttons that can be pressed by the player, or shed mass. And these, I guess, can probably just be binary, like they just need something on them. Oh, maybe blocks that you can only push if you're bigger than them. I think that that makes sense as an idea. Scales, or actually, let's call them seesaws. Yeah, there we go. That tilt based on how much weight is on either side, so that way you can like dump a bunch of mass on one side, then use it to climb up like a ramp. That makes sense. I mean, I guess this counts as a mechanic. Holes that you can only fit through if you're small enough. I mean, again, that doesn't really require any programming, but it's something to consider. I just want to keep that in mind. Um, oh, and then I was talking with some of my friends last night after I kind of signed off for the day, and one of them had a really fun idea for a new player mechanic, which is the ability to launch little like globs of shed mass, like a projectile. And I think that that could be an interesting way. Like it would still spend mass in the same way, but instead of putting it under you, it would launch it up, like so that you can, put it on a platform or hit a button on a wall or something like that. Also, for that matter, I think it's worth saying that there should probably be buttons that require constant pressure and buttons that are just triggers. So like one button you have to have something on it in order to keep it active, while the other type of button, as long as you hit it once, it triggers. So like if a button's on a wall, for example, then that's what you would use to launch globs at enemies. For that matter, another thing that is just kind of necessary for like polish would probably be a reset button, because I feel like with how the player can like spend a bunch of mass in various places, like when you get up onto a ledge, if you spend a bunch of mass and then you get off that ledge, you might not be able to get back onto it. And especially if you have the ability to launch mass up into areas that you cannot access, I can already sense that there's going to be a ton of opportunities to just completely soft lock yourself in these puzzles. So some kind of reset button or mechanic to kind of save the player. One idea that's a little bit more interesting than a reset button is maybe there's like a some kind of platform that you can stand on that draws all your shed mass back into yourself. So that way, like, it's effectively still a reset button, but it'd be easier than reloading the entire level. And then this way, you can kind of pull things back into you. So, like, I think that could work. But I could also just add a straight up button that reloads the level. So I guess we'll see what happens when I get there. And of course, I'm not really going to be thinking about these kinds of polish elements until tomorrow at the earliest, but might as well just add it to the list. We probably want to, make the process of gaining and shedding mass a bit more fluid. Maybe adding a texture or a trail of goop that follows the player. So like when you're like squelching along the ground, you like leave little, it wouldn't actually like do anything mechanically, but I think it would make sense for like the theme of being this sort of goopy gelatinous cube, as well as adding like, you know, squash and stretch animations to the cube. Adding more interesting things to absorb. Right now, the only thing you can absorb is just more cubes. But I think that in the actual final game, I want it to be like for example, maybe there's like discarded food or, just like debris, dead adventurers, that kind of thing, that are just like in the world for you to absorb. And that's how you get your initial mass, and then when you shed mass, it's just the more green goop and stuff like that. Um, well, speaking of which, we probably could look for some like dungeon texture packs or asset bundles. I'm sure there's got to be a few free ones on the Unity store that I can just download. So that'll probably be an easy way because I imagine I'm not really thinking too hard about the story, but I'm thinking that like because like the classic nature of gelatinous cubes and like D&D and stuff is that you that they were created by wizards to clean out a dungeon. So maybe it's like you're effectively a fantasy Roomba, or maybe you're trying to leave the dungeon for the first time, and you have to like solve puzzles, but like backwards. So that could be interesting in terms of like how I design the puzzles. Is that you're kind of having to break them and go them in reverse or something like that. So like there's various things that I can imagine. But that again, this is all polished, so I'm not even going to worry about this until at least tomorrow. And keep in mind, I still have another full day after that. So because this ends on Tuesday, I believe. So, yeah, it ends on the 20th at 1 p.m. According to the website. So yeah, so we still got plenty of time to go. I'm trying to not rush myself. I was super nervous yesterday, but I think I've calmed my nerves now. Of course, I do need to take care of some chores and probably eat some breakfast to finish waking up for today. But I think that we have a pretty good plan for how to progress from here. And then, yeah, obviously, at some point, uh, you know, make actual levels and puzzles has got to be on the list, I guess. I figured that was implied, but yeah. So yeah, I guess I'll check in once I start implementing some of these features. I think I'm going to focus on the puzzle elements, and then once I get some of these done, then I'll think about going back to the player and adding this. So I'll check back in a bit. Okay, so progress update. I've got some basic stuff put in place. I've got some buttons that currently change color just because that was the easiest thing to do when you step on them. And you can, in fact, leave some mass on them in order to keep them triggered. So that way you can do things like this and then have those set up. And I've got it set up so that they're controlled, or they trigger Unity events, which means it should be really easy to just plug in puzzle elements and whatnot to react to them without having to write any specific code. And then I've got the seesaw here. Now, one thing that I have realized is that because of how the third-person starter kit is programmed using the character controller, the actual character doesn't have many physics interactions. So until you spawn a cube, it doesn't actually do anything, which is a little bit awkward. But I do have the cube physics working properly. So like this cube's really small. So if I spawn a cube over on this side, for example, but then I make it bigger and bigger, eventually, once its mass is big enough, well, I reabsorbed it there. But once its mass gets big enough, then it can, weigh it down and of course, to knock the other cube off there. But you get the idea. So definitely some good progress, but I might have to go back and change some stuff in the character controller in order to make sure that it can actually interact with physics properly. I mean, on one hand, that is kind of an interesting limitation, the idea that you have to spawn an object in order to actually be able to interact with physics like that, but I feel like it's less intuitive and probably not a good idea to have it work that way. So I'm going to go back and fix it. Also, while I'm at it, another idea that I had was maybe adding a limitation on the things you can absorb. Because, like, for example, right now, I can just absorb anything that has, like, the absorbable script attached to it. But what I might do is add, like, some Katamari logic so that if I come across a cube that is bigger than me like this, then I have to at least be like approximately the same size or bigger in order to absorb it. So I'll play around with that and see if I like it. But yeah, I'll see you in the next update. Okay, it is unfortunately already the end of day 2. And not a lot has changed because today has kind of admittedly been a bit of a low point, I will have to confess. If anything, this has been a lesson in the phrase, nothing wastes time more than trying to save time. Effectively, I've had to redo the entire player from scratch in order to get the functionality that I wanted. So we're mostly back to where we were, like we still have the cube making functionality, we can reabsorb the cubes, move around, orient, and everything. Except now, to be fair, some progress is that we do have now proper physics interactions with the player. And it still interacts normally. So if you have like a really, really big cube on the other side, then that can weigh it down, and then that can, be how you solve certain puzzles and whatnot. Um, but in order to do that, I basically had to scrap everything I did yesterday with the player. And it's that thing where like I was like, oh, I might as well use the third person template and save a bunch of time because like I've made a bunch of player controllers in the past. I don't need to make another one, right? But of course, in doing so, it didn't quite have the functionality I needed, and I was trying to force it to work, and my code was just getting more and more spaghettified as time went on. And basically, the takeaway is that I should have just started from scratch to begin with. Or at the very least, I should have abandoned trying to retrofit that code a lot earlier than I did. So yeah, so I mean that is a classic lesson, like in all forms of art. Really, is don't be afraid of throwing away your work because sometimes what you make afterwards can be even better. And I think that's true in this case. Like the player in right now, it is a lot better than it was. Like this doesn't really convey much over video, obviously, but I think it controls a lot better. There's a little bit more of like a slidiness to the player, which I think fits the whole goop aesthetic. Like once I start adding sound effects and the little goo trail below it, if I can find a way to do that easily, I think that'll kind of help play into the fact that you're this like gelatinous cube and whatnot. Plus, the player's mass actually changes properly now. I might have to tweak the values a little bit, but the player's move speed actually is slightly different depending on your size. So, like when you're smaller, you move a little bit faster. Um, and so there is some interesting things to it. Obviously, like I said, I'm going to be tweaking it a lot. Tomorrow, I'm going to have to try and get some more of the puzzle elements that I wasn't able to get finished today done. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, like I said, nothing wastes time more than trying to save time. And I mean, this is just the reality of game development. Sometimes things go wrong and you waste time, and it's best not to dwell on it because that's just going to waste even more time. And so, you just gotta grit your teeth and deal with it every once in a while. And I hope that at the very least that this can serve as a good lesson to remember that in the future. But, look on the bright side. Like I said, I'm pretty much back to where I was before the debacle. And I still have 2 full days of the game jam left. Because we got all day tomorrow and then all day Monday. I do have an obligation on Monday for about 3 hours, so that'll interrupt my progress, but it shouldn't be too bad. I should be able to work all of the morning and after that just fine. And then, of course, there's the morning of Tuesday, which, I mean, by that point, I should be, like, putting finishing touches on. I don't want to be, like, programming in new features hours before the deadline. But I think that right now, given that things are now in a much better spot than they were when I started all this, I should be able to get a lot more done on that to-do list. Let me pull that up real quick. Right, here's my to-do list. So we got the buttons done, and the buttons are triggers. They require constant pressure. Technically, these can also be used as one-time buttons because I made them very versatile, so that's all good. Seesaw, I mean, that's literally just physics interaction, so that's already done. And I mean, this barely even counts as a feature. Like, I literally just need to model something that just has a hole that's small enough. One thing I was thinking of with this is that this could be a good way to have to gate the level exits, because if the exit of each level, it requires you to be as small as possible in order to fit through the door, then that kind of resets the player into a stable state for the next puzzle. And then that way I know that they won't carry in like an absurd amount of mass or something to completely break all the future puzzles and things like that. So I think tomorrow, now that I've got some of this stuff all worked out, it should be no problem to quickly implement, things like the blocks as well as the ability to launch projectiles. I think that'll be super easy. Um, And then after that, I think we can start making at least some basic starter levels. Because I want to at least make like a tutorial that tells the player like what all the controls are, and then maybe some really really basic puzzles to kind of just establish the mechanics. And then once I get that done, I'll start thinking about additional puzzle mechanics that I can implement, or ways to combine existing mechanics in order to make some more interesting things. Because, like, for example, kind of an extension of the seesaw mechanic is I want to, like how in the original, like, Super Mario Brothers, there was, like, those platforms that were connected by pulleys. So, like, it wasn't a seesaw per se, but like because the platforms were connected, if you had a weight on one platform, it would raise the other platform while it pulled down. I don't know if there's a better way to describe it, but like, Mario 1 platforms, or I'll just list that as a subcategory under seesaws because I think that would be a good extension of that mechanic that again still plays into mass and whatnot. But yeah, so I'm gonna go to bed, try to get some sleep. And then in the morning, I'm gonna get right back to work, and we're gonna make some real progress tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, it'll go a lot better than today did. Okay, day 3 of the game jam is officially starting. So we have just over 2 full days of work left. Because we've got all of today and all of tomorrow, and then of course the final day ends at 1 p.m. So that means that chances are, like I said, I don't want to be actually like implementing new mechanics or anything on the last day. Maybe I'll be still making some puzzles. But last day is definitely going to be for like cleaning things up and polishing, and then trying to submit, not 1 minute before the deadline or anything like that. So today, I think we definitely need to finish getting all of our basic mechanics implemented. I think the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and work on getting this last ability for the player implemented, because that way I'll have everything done on that end. And then the only coding that I'll really have to do after that point or any other random ideas I have for puzzles, like I said with the Mario 1, seesaw platforms or things like that, that might, give me a new way to interact with the mass mechanic and the environment and things like that. So I think today's going to go a lot better than yesterday. I mean, like I said, yesterday was a bit of a low point. It's also one of the downsides of working solo. Because, like, if I had another team member, for example, they could have been working on new stuff and, continuing to make progress while I was going back and fixing things. So the fact that I was by myself meant that that was pretty much nothing but time loss. But I'm not here to make excuses, I'm here to make a game. So let's get to work. Okay, feeling a lot better today than I did yesterday. So I've got the basic shooting thing working. Obviously, I still need to like tweak the values and stuff, but I figure that will come when I start actually making the levels. I also fixed a bug that I didn't record earlier, which was basically that you could still move while like growing a mass, and if you did that, it would actually like you could keep holding down the space bar and it would just keep growing regardless of how far away you are from it. And like on one hand, that is actually kind of an interesting idea, and I could see it being used in some puzzles, but it's also very unintuitive. And so I feel like that it's probably the best to just patch that out and not deal with it. Um, but yeah, other than that, I also patched up just a few other general things. So just, I made things a lot smoother. I mean, I added a whole secondary camera mode for when you're aiming, although again, I do need to clean up a few things as you can see. But, other than that, it is looking pretty good. I think that next on the agenda is I'm going to see if I can download some basic dungeon assets and just start actually making levels. Because like I've got my two main mechanics. They work pretty well, and consistently. I got buttons, I got seesaws and levers and all kinds of fun stuff like that. So I think I'm ready to at least start making levels, and then as time goes on, I think as I like start making stuff, I will see if I can add like some new mechanics as they're needed. So hopefully next time I check in, things will look very different from how they do now. Okay, a little bit of Google searching later, and I think I found a few really good assets that I think will work perfectly for my needs, like this little low poly dungeon scene and a few other accommodating ones. Most of the assets I pulled so far, at least, are actually from this creator, literally just called Just Create. And I like their tagline here: "Don't worry about 3D art, just create your game." And they actually have a ton of these little low poly bundles. So shout out to them real quick for having a bunch of really great free packs, as well as much more complicated paid packs, of course, that you can buy. But yeah, I think that this will work good for giving my game a little bit more style. Okay, I've been plugging away at this for a little while, and this isn't, an amazing room, but I think it's a pretty good start to this asset incorporation. Once again, shout out to Just Create for this amazing free asset bundle. Yeah. So I've been mostly just spending a few hours incorporating these assets, making sure they have hitboxes and that they interact with the player and the camera without too much issue. And I've been doing a few things, like a lot of it is just making prefabs. Because I'm trying to think ahead, learn some lessons from the mistakes I made yesterday. So, for example, once I make a wall that can give it like the proper hitboxes and everything, I make a prefab out of it. And then I make a prefab out of that prefab for like a wider wall, or I make a much bigger wall that has torches on it and things like that. So in theory, tomorrow when I really go hard on trying to just make a bunch of levels, which I think is going to be the biggest goal tomorrow, I should be able to just use these prefabs to just really, really quickly throw together, entire new areas and whatnot. And I should be able to make a good number of levels to populate the game. And then the day after that, or rather the morning after that, I should say, will just be polished pretty much. But yeah, things are coming along well. I've also got it so that, like I said, I think I'm gonna have it be that like random food and other organic materials you find in the environment will be what you initially absorb to get bigger. And I'm programming it so that, for one, I've added this little particle effect, which I think acts as a decent way to denote what like you can eat. It's a little basic for now. I might try to add like a fancier particle to it, but I think this gets the idea across for now. And on top of that, I've also made it so that if it's too big, so like this thing is like way bigger than me, so I can't eat it yet. So I just kind of like bounce off of it. But things that are around my size or mass, I can eat. And then if I go ahead and recollect all my little balls here, now I'm a much closer in size to it. I'm still a little bit smaller, but now I'm big enough that I can eat it, and then I can absorb its mass. So I think that'll also add an interesting little element to it where, for example, I think in the tutorial area, I'm going to put like a gigantic watermelon that's right next to the player so that, they see that they can eat it, but it'll be too big. And then part of like the tutorial will be going around just absorbing a bunch of stuff until you get big enough to eat that watermelon, and then maybe you can use that watermelon to like climb up one of these benches or something, get up on top of it, and then get at like another thing, and so on and so forth. So things are coming along well, and I've still got a lot of time left today, so I'm definitely going to finish this tutorial level today. And then what I might do instead of working on more levels is I think I might just take care of some busy work. So like making a main menu system just so that I can like open the game, quit the game, that kind of thing. Adding a level reset because, like I said, I just know that this game is going to be prone to soft locks. So I have a feeling that having a reset button will be necessary. So I want to get that in the game at some point so that I don't have to worry about it. Oh yeah, I also added a little face to my little guy here. I thought it would make him a little bit more charming, you know? But yeah, and I guess I'll check back in at the end of the day and we'll see just where we are. Okay, we are officially nearing the end of day 3 now, and I've basically taken care of a bunch of little busy work that I just needed to get out of the way. I figured it'd be better to just do this now instead of like rushing to complete it at the last second. So, like I said, I haven't quite finished the tutorial, although I do still have some time left in the day, so I might try and see if I can get some work done. But I got pretty much all of the basic menu functionality done, so that that is just out of the way. It's nothing too glamorous, and I'll probably touch it up in the coming days, you know, either tomorrow or on the final day. You know, I'll give it a once over. Maybe I'll try to draw like a really cheap logo or something. But yeah, so got the credits. Obviously, pretty much everything was done by me, but this is mostly just to list the Unity Asset Store credits. And actually, one thing I might do before I go to bed tonight is see if I can search up some basic sound effects and some like ambiance music, and then just add that to the credits as well, and try to just throw that in real quick. That way, again, it's just taken care of it. I don't need to worry about it. And these also open up links. I don't believe you'll be able to see them. Yeah, because it'll open up the link on a different monitor here for me. But yeah, but like this links to their asset store page, and that of course links to the YouTube channel. And then I've added a level select here because I figured I'm not going to bother implementing like a save system or anything. And this way, if somebody is playing this game and they just want to get to like a certain level, either like where they left off previously, or if they just want to like go back and look at something in particular, that way they can do that much more easily without having to go through all the other levels. Of course, I still don't know how many levels I'm going to make. I have been compiling some puzzle ideas in the background, but I figure tomorrow will be big level design day, basically. I've been essentially lining up all my ducks in a row. I've got lots of prefabs. I actually was working on a couple more mechanics. Like I've got this weighted button that actually like responds to your weight as one of my newer mechanics. So yeah, as you can see, like as I shed weight, I actually like lose weight and the button goes up a little bit. I figured that would be a cool little addition to, you know, I could possibly add some more level mechanics based around that. And I have added the ability to reload a level if you get stuck, and then if you press escape, you go back to the main menu. And of course, you know, you can quit the game to leave. So, oh, and this is actually technically my first official test build that I'm running. I'm not running this in the editor because something I have learned in my limited experience in game development is that it is a good idea to make an early test build just to make sure that nothing is falling apart. Because you never know if there's some weird interaction between the scripts and your code and stuff like that. But it looks like everything is going well, so I'm pretty pleased with that. And then, yeah, like I said, tomorrow I've got all the basic building blocks in place. I can easily just throw together a bunch of assets to add this little edible script to that I can absorb. I've got buttons, switches. I added a really generic script for like just moving objects on command. So yeah, I've got a ton of toys to play with. And I guess tonight will be my last night of sleep for the Game Jam. Because let's be honest, the last day is only from midnight to 1 p.m. And as they recommend in the rules or the guidelines, that you probably don't want to be submitting, you know, at the last possible minute. And so, you know, I'm not gonna go to bed and wake up, you know, only a couple hours before it's ready to be submitted, and then still have work to do or anything. So, I figured, like I said, tomorrow will be big level design, actually making content for the game, and then basically just I'll have time to polish and everything, and then it'll be good to go. So, things are looking pretty good. I'm debating if I want to add a ceiling here. I think I might just change the camera so that it just defaults the background to be black, and then that way it just kind of doesn't matter. But yeah, I guess I will check back in tomorrow morning, and we'll pretty much get this game finished. Dawn of the final day. 24 hours remain. Well, okay, slightly more than 24 hours to be fair. Although, actually, for me, it's almost exactly 24 hours because, like I said before, for about 3 hours today, I do need to go take care of something with a prior obligation. So, yeah, actually, it is almost exactly 24 hours for me. But I think that also gives me a good sort of cutoff point to work with. So, like I was saying before, I took care of a bunch of busy work in order to make sure the menus are working and that all of the little, build settings and project settings and things like that were all set properly. And I've got a bunch of prefabs already made and ready to be deployed to build levels. So, today is going to be big level design day. So, I think that in the morning, I'm going to try and finish the tutorial, but in that process, I need to also go through and rebalance some of the players' abilities to make sure that they're actually like set and how I want them to be. Because otherwise, I'll be designing the levels around a player that doesn't work right. Because like for example, one of the things that I do want to change is the fact that right now, even if the player is like super big and has a lot of mass, when they spawn a weight under themselves, they still like here I'll demonstrate what I mean. So if I absorb this mushroom here and I get a lot of mass, if I try to like do a pseudo jump and like spawn a weight under myself, I still start spawning it really really tiny, and it's really easy to accidentally fall off of it. Um, so I was thinking that I should probably make it so that that grows a lot fast. Like it scales its growth with your size, so that like if you're really really big, you can make a much bigger cube much faster. And I also want to change the aim guide so that it just looks a little bit better, like making it close down to a point on the other end, as well as having it maybe stretch to represent the power of the shot. And for that matter, I feel like it should probably be a lot stronger. And if I could maybe clean up some of that camera jitteriness, that would probably be a good idea. So yeah, I'm gonna go take care of all of that. And then yeah, we'll check back in the middle of the day, and hopefully the tutorial should be just about done. Okay, rebalancing the player is actually coming along really well. I fixed some of the camera jitter issues, and as you can see, the power of the shot, you can visually see it getting stronger now, which I think conveys that a lot better. Also just raised the general power level a bit, which means that now you can much more easily, like, land shots that are a couple meters above you, so that should make it a lot easier to navigate a few puzzles. And then, of course, rebalancing the size of the cubes that you can shed was actually super easy. I initially just multiplied the rate of shedding mass by the current mass of the player, and I expected to have to do some more fancy math, like maybe, squaring it or taking a square root or something like that. But it actually worked out like super well just by doing that. So like as you can see, it scales really well. It's really easy to stack boxes at large sizes now, and you can still do it like at small sizes to some degree, but obviously you don't get nearly as high. So I think that that actually feels really nice. I have noticed that there is a slight math error happening somewhere where the player seems to get slightly bigger than when they started if they shed a bunch of mass like this and then reabsorb it. So I might double check some of the math in the code, but so far it's only like, zero point 0.3 of a unit when going from like 20 units to 1 and then back again. So it's not the worst problem in the world. I don't think it's gonna completely break the game, but I'll double check it just in case. But yeah, things are coming along well. Okay, I'm officially back from my appointment that I had today, so basically I'm going to be working nonstop until I turn the project in by tomorrow morning. But before I hunker down and start just making a bunch of levels, I thought I'd share an amusing game jam anecdote, which is that you often have to just kind of jury rig things together when you need a quick and dirty solution. Basically, what happened here is I was looking through my assets and I realized that there are no door assets. Like there's just no doors in any of the asset packs that I downloaded. And so I could have gone through and looked for a new door asset and then imported it and configured all the settings and everything to make it work. But I figured that it would be faster to just kind of make this little thing that I jury rigged together out of some fence posts, a few wooden boards, and then I just slapped on a script that I had already written for like moving platforms and stuff, and it actually works out pretty well, if I say so myself. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so it literally just let me get back on the button here. Yeah, it just swings open once the button is depressed far enough, and yeah, it works surprisingly well, all things considered. And of course, I gave it a proper hitbox and everything, and yeah. So yeah, just sometimes a fun part of game jams is just finding these kinds of silly, quick and dirty solutions like that. But yeah, I guess I'll chime back in once I start making some more levels. Okay, I just figured I would check on in around 15 hours before the deadline right now. Although, let's be real, it's not like nobody's going to be doing work in the last like hour, including myself. Like if I'm not done by noon, I'm just going to submit whatever I have and just try to start submitting because you never know what kind of problems might arise. And hopefully I can submit sooner than that. But yeah, so we got, like, let's say 14-ish hours to go. And right now, I think my goal is to try and get 6 levels, counting the tutorial, so 5, real levels done. I'm working on level 2 right now, and I've currently finished level 1 and the tutorial. So that's 2 levels down. Luckily, these are going by faster and faster because, like I said, I kind of planned ahead. Most of my assets are already all put together, and I've got a bunch of stuff in place, so things are looking pretty good for me. We'll see just how many I end up doing, but if I can get 5 real levels done before the deadline, I think I will be pretty happy about that. And then, yeah, might as well get back to work. Okay, it is officially just past midnight, which means that we are now on the final day of the game jam. There are, yep, 12 hours and 58 minutes remaining until the deadline. So, like I said, about 12 hours before I start trying to submit at the absolute latest. However, I'm actually making pretty good pace. I've already got the tutorial and level 1 from earlier. And then I've also completed 2 more levels in that time. So here's level 2, and here's level 3. So, only 2 more levels, and I'll have reached my completely arbitrary goal that I set for myself. And I've got 12 hours to do it, so really my only limiting factor here is just trying to come up with good ways to use these mechanics, because my problem is that I've actually been combining ideas in these puzzles, so I'm burning through my list of ideas a little quickly. But I mean, I've also been coding up some stuff. Like I've made these new platforms that are actually moved by the weighted buttons, and they move relative to how much weight is on the button. And I've been able to use that to make an interesting puzzle here. So, like for example, if I jump on this platform, you can see that that platform moves up according to how much weight is on it. So, like if I put 20 weight on it, then it'd actually move all the way up to the top. But then, if you put on just under half, then you can put it there, and like that's how this puzzle works. And I thought that was an interesting mechanic. I might reuse this in another puzzle, just because I think there's a number of ways that I could play around with this. But yeah, 2 more puzzles to go, and who knows? Maybe I'll do extra if I can keep thinking up ideas. Okay, we are making some pretty good progress. I've just finished the 4th level now, so only one more level left to go before I reach my completely arbitrary goal of 5 levels. And I mean, to be fair, the tutorial, it's not a complicated puzzle, but it doesn't actually explicitly tell you how to get out. So you do have to, like, figure some things out yourself along the way. Um, but yeah, I've taken some time though. Instead of finishing up the 5th level, I decided to go back and polish up a couple of things. For one, I forgot to ever actually mention in the game that there was a reset button. So I've gone ahead and added that to the main menu in the controls menu as well as here in the tutorial. Um, and then I have gone ahead and also added the escape button here. And then on top of that, the transition between levels was pretty jank before because it would just instantly teleport you to the next level. So now I've added a win screen that tells you your time. Uh, well, that's not quite right. I need to. Oh, I think I forgot to subtract some stuff. And it also plays a little victory ditty, although it is currently looping. I don't think you can hear that, thankfully. So I need to turn off that loop. But yeah, it pops up this menu, and then you can go to the next level or back to the main menu. So I think that makes the transition between levels a little bit more smooth. But yeah, let me just go patch up a couple more bugs, and then I'll go ahead and finish that 5th level. And then after that, it's pretty much just gonna be maybe like an hour or two of just building the game and going through it a few times, make sure everything's in place. I just updated the credits again to make sure everything's got appropriate attribution for all the assets I've used. And then yeah, I think I'll be ready to submit pretty early. I mean, relatively speaking, at least. Yeah. Okay. Final level completed. Oh my god. Yeah, I kind of just threw a bunch of stuff at the wall for this one, but I think that this is going to do it. So now, all I have left to do, really, is build the game and make sure it works and doesn't crash. I also went ahead and made a sort of thanks for playing screen, just as a sort of end screen. So that way, once you finish all 5 levels, you kind of get that, and then you go back to the main menu, just to kind of give the game a proper loop, so that you don't have to like exit out of it awkwardly. And then yeah, I'm just gonna now go over all the credits on the main menu, make sure that everything looks good. And then, yeah, I guess it'll be finally time to turn this thing in, and then I can get some sleep. The sun has just risen, the birds are chirping, and I just completed my first official playthrough of my release candidate for Cuby the Gelatinous Cube. I've been trying to come up with a better name than that all day, and I think my brain is just completely done. So yeah, we've got 5 levels plus the tutorial level, which like I said is kind of a mini puzzle level. It's not a difficult puzzle level, but there is a puzzle to solve there. So like 6 levels total, which I think is respectable. Credits are all here and in place, and these links all work to their appropriate pages. Full control list. Quick game obviously works, and I can't really show you that. And then yeah, we've got that. The reset button works. And then yeah. Level 1, reset button works. Yeah, really at this point I just need to go through, make sure all the buttons work in random levels, that you can still reset them. And it looks like they do. So, apologies if that was a little bit wacky, but yeah. I think I'm about ready to submit. Yeah, I think I just need to go zip this up and upload it to the website, and with quite a few hours to spare. Well, one last thing that I thought about trying to do was adding more sound effects to the game, because right now, like when you're like, going around absorbing things, you make no sound. And I've gotten used to this just because I've been doing it for 4 days straight. But it definitely feels like it could use like a sound effect there to really help like sell the feeling of shrinking and growing and stuff. But the problem is that like one, I'm not a Foley artist, and two, uh, those kinds of like squelching, goopy sound effects, I feel are really, really easy to get annoying really quickly. So if I just tried to find some quick and dirty, gooey sound effects and plug them in, uh, even if they sound fine, if they're something that has to be played like 100 times throughout the game, I feel like it's going to get more annoying than it's worth it. And I think that in the context of what I'm able to do right now, at least, I think that no sound effects is probably better than annoying sound effects. Um, though, like I said, if I continue working on this, which I don't know if I'll do, but we'll see. Um, then yeah, sound effects would definitely be early on the list for trying to find something to like give our little QB guy some more personality. Um, but yeah, I mean, closing thoughts, I guess. I'm pretty proud of everything that I've done. Wow, the birds are really out in force this morning. But yeah, I mean, I'll fully acknowledge that, this might not have been the most, insanely off the wall idea for this game jam. I'm always blown away by like what people do with these because like the Game Maker's Toolkit one in particular seems to always get a ton of really really high quality entries. And I'm always amazed by what people can do. And I'm like, you know what? I'm proud of what I've done, especially as a completely solo project. And it's been a while since my last game jam. Not to make too many excuses, but like I said, I was pretty rusty those first couple of days. Um, but I managed to get something that works at the end of the day. So I'm proud of that, regardless. And you know what? I actually think that the puzzles I came up with were actually pretty good, in my opinion at least. Though I am almost 100% certain that there are some like exploits and various strategies and stuff that completely break these puzzles wide open. So there'll be an itch link somewhere in relation to this video, probably in the description when I edit all of this together. So if you want to play the game yourself, that'll be where it is. And feel free to just absolutely break this game over your knees. Because I'm sure that it would be very funny to see that happen. But yeah, thank you all for watching. And I hope you all enjoy all the other great games that are going to be in the GMTK Game Jam this year. So make sure to check those out. And until next time, I hope to see you guys later.